This happy, shoot, stay. This happy, fun lecture time is going to be about mass media. So, media is a way that we communicate information. It's actually the plural of medium, which does not refer to how spicy you want your burrito, but ways that we can communicate thoughts and ideas. So, examples of media could be speaking, recording what you say, writing it down, publishing what you've written down. So, for all practical purposes, we're really talking about TV, radio, internet, newspapers, magazines, internet websites, a whole range of stuff. That's what we mean by media, especially in the context of media that is talking about politics. And then by mass, we mean lots of people. Okay, so mass media. If you write a blog in your mom's basement and 8 people read it, that is media, but it is not mass media. It needs to actually reach a lot of people for it to really concern us in this context, to actually have any type of effect on, people's opinions and affect public policy and the things that we care about in this class. I was hoping to hit you with a definition of mass media. What does the media do? Well, primarily entertainment is probably what you're familiar with. This can include political topics. For example, The Daily Show or The Colbert Report, they will tell you that they are primarily entertainment, but they will be entertaining about political topics. Saturday Night Live is another example, but that would be one function of the media. So even if it's not considered a political topic, your favorite SpongeBob episode is media for entertainment purposes. And then there's news reports. And so print reports, newspapers, magazines, radio, TV, internet. So internet could be a whole range of stuff. Internet could be the website of a news organization. It could be a blog with a large following, any of those things. News reports now can be people that are tweeting from a place that is having some type of newsworthy event happen, posting videos of it and that kind of stuff. Most people today still rely on TV for news, although that number is dwindling as the internet, more and more people are turning to the internet for news. Now, agenda setting is a topic that we're going to talk a lot about in the next unit on policy making. But this is one of the key... time for zero period to start. This is one of the key functions of the media. Agenda setting is drawing attention to the issue. In other words, how do we make people care about this that's happening? So if there's, the recent typhoon that hit the Philippines, the Philippines is far away. If it wasn't for the media to show us pictures and let us hear stories of survivors and understand the real tragedy that's happening there, it wouldn't necessarily become something that our government or our people would be concerned about. So that's what agenda setting means, is how does this become an important issue to the government or to the public that would affect policy making, and that we would make decisions on how to want to intervene or help out or do whatever we want to do. And then the media also helps in the creation of political forums. And what this means is sort of a place or an arena or an opportunity for politicians to do things that they want to do. So, politicians can make announcements. They can go on TV. The president can have a press conference or give a big speech on TV. It could be a debate. It could be an opportunity for experts to debate policy issues. Photo ops is another example of a political forum, primarily for the purpose of trying to make a candidate look better during an election, or just to help support a policy that a government official is doing. Those are all different things that the media helps do, and these are important things. So again, when we're talking about media, we're talking about print media, newspapers, magazines, I said this already, electronic media, radio and TV, and then the interwebs, news sites, blogs, the YouTube, the Twitter, the Vine. I don't know if Vine really counts as a news thing. Things of this nature. Facebook, does that count as media? I mean, I guess it does, but yeah, sure, why not? Like this post and you will save someone from falling in a well. So what can the government do to control the media? Obviously, in some countries we can see the governments can do a whole lot to control media. And sometimes governments wish they could do more. I'm sure that, Edward Snowden's leaks that are getting out in the media are not the favorite thing of our government right now. But their court case, excuse me, as we learned earlier in the year when someone did, one of the early cases that we do is Neer versus Minnesota. And in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that the government could not use prior restraint in the media. In other words, they couldn't tell the media not to publish something before they've published it. So you can get in trouble for publishing something later, in cases of libel. No, in cases of, libel, slander is when you say it, or something like that. But look at this. Gosh, it's hard to write on here. I just made that worse. Anyway, Neer versus Minnesota, no prior restraint. So the government can't. So now 0 period starts. Was that first one the 5-minute bell? Really? Okay. What else does government do? So the FCC, this is the one that Slim Shady likes to rap about. If you remember back when Eminem started, when you guys were probably in like 4th grade or something. The FCC regulates radio and TV licenses, and one of the main purposes of this is because if you have different stations broadcasting using the same frequency, then they're just drowning each other out. You're not hearing anything, and so the airwaves are ruled to be sort of a public resource, and the FCC helps to decide who broadcasts, what frequency they broadcast on, as well as putting in some rules about what can you broadcast so that it meets, community decency standards, so that someone isn't broadcasting, offensive language or pornography or, how to build a meth lab, like those types of things. The FCC can control that, and so that gives the government a little bit of control over the media. So one thing that's important to be aware of, don't do that to me. Bam! The Telecommunications Act. It's the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and it had a lot of effects and a lot of stated goals, but what we're going to care about right now is that it increased the number of stations, radio stations, that one company could own in a certain market. So my understanding is that prior to the Telecommunications Act, you were limited to 2, and now it's something like 6. And what happened was this helped lead to lots of companies merging and big companies buying up little companies. So now today, 90% of broadcast media is controlled by just 6 companies. Look at that writing. Good job, Mr. Buyer. Own 90% of the media. And so if you're curious, those 6 companies are General Electric, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. And so our media is very much dominated by, just a handful of very large and powerful corporations. And our government passed a law that allowed that to happen. So thanks, guys. 2 other ways that the government can control the media are the equal time rule and the right of reply. So the equal time rule is this idea that a radio or TV station, broadcast stations, have to have an equivalent opportunity for both candidates who want access to the airwaves, essentially. So if there's a Republican candidate and they go on TV and they say, blah, blah, vote for me because I'm so great, that TV station has to give equivalent time to the Democratic candidate as well. So, if you were going to give them a primetime slot to one for a couple minutes, you have to give a primetime slot to the other one for a couple minutes. There are certain exceptions to this rule. If it's a documentary, if it's certain news interviews, it's not really a fluff piece, but more legitimate. Sometimes if it's like on the spot news event, so maybe something genuinely newsworthy happens with one of the candidates. So it's not as if someone's sitting there with a stopwatch that I'm aware of. Maybe they are. I don't know. So anyway, that's that equal time rule. And then right of reply basically just says that you have to give candidates an opportunity to sort of address or rebut any criticisms or attacks or something like that goes against them. They have to be given sort of an opportunity to defend themselves. How does the media impact politics? So, what is it that they can do? One is sound bites. So, sound bites is when president might give a big long speech, and the news media only will broadcast, 5 or 6 seconds of it, and so essentially everything they said just gets whittled down to that little tiny piece. So then the message could be taken out of context. Effective politicians will learn how to speak in sound bites, knowing that just little quotes are going to be taken, which really can be difficult if there's a complicated issue. People that aren't willing to go an extra step and do their own research aren't going to really understand the issue. They're just going to see sort of at the sound bite level. And so that, can potentially be a negative thing. Media also runs ads, especially negative ads. Those get a lot of attention. And so a lot of people dislike that, but the media is the platform for delivering those advertisements. And so that is certainly has, a large effect on elections and politics and what's happening. So not just when people are getting elected, but, policy decisions and things like that. Also just what the news coverage that they provide. And so what they decide to cover at some point is helping to influence the government and what they're doing. Sort of creating a news event, determining what is newsworthy. Spin doctors are people that will interpret an event in a certain way to put it in a certain light. So especially if you look at more biased news sources like MSNBC or Fox News, they will have a lot of people that go on and talk and try to put something in context. So no matter what President Obama does now, Fox News will find a spin to make it look bad, whereas a more liberal news outlet is going to find a spin to make it look good no matter what happens, and sort of attack each other that way. So spin doctor is sort of being careful with the facts, maybe neglecting some facts and highlighting other facts to sort of try to promote the interpretation that they're most interested in. And then lastly, presidential debates. So we're familiar with this. Presidential debates can have a big impact on elections. I don't know how big the impact is, to tell you the truth. I don't know. But you have to have the media to have the debates, because otherwise people wouldn't see them or know about them, what's going on. And so that, affects elections and politics and what's happening. So what are some of the government officials that are tasked with being involved with the media, especially people that you might need to know about on a test? The White House Press Corps. So you are going to watch... No, actually, you should have already watched the instructional multimedia presentation called Journeys with George, where they have sort of a press team that follows along on his campaign bus that is with the candidate at all times. The White House Press Corps is very similar, and they talk about, in that film, they're going to talk about being in the bubble. In some ways, the White House Press Corps is in the bubble as well, because they just follow the president around. It's the same people that are in that room answering questions from the press secretary, which we'll talk about in a second, and the president. And so it's really those people, it's essentially their job is to follow the president around and report on what he's doing. And so that, the White House staff tries to affect what those people do and say, and those people are, largely influential in how the president is perceived. The press secretary is the person who works in the White House office who is in charge of handling the press corps, and they provide regular briefings, usually a couple times a day, and so they sort of will interpret the president's message or the administration's message and say, here's what's happening, and here's why it should be seen as a good thing, or whatever, however they want you to, interpret it. And then what's can be frustrating for a president is this opportunity to focus on less important matters. And so they're essentially with the president all day, and they need to keep publishing stories, and so sometimes they'll find stuff that really isn't, necessarily important, but they will have to report on those things just for the sake of needing to keep reporting on stuff. And so presidents don't always like that. Sometimes I'm sure they would rather just be left alone, but then don't run for president. Okay, if you have questions, email me. That's a great way to get a hold of me. And when you are supposed to be watching this, it should be on Wednesday, and then so you'll have a quiz on media on Friday. So good luck with that. And now that I just said this, I've dated this video, and I probably can't use it again. So that comment about the dates refers to fall of 2013 AP Government class. If you are not fall 2013, then I don't know when your quiz is. Good luck. I'm probably posted it somewhere, and you know how to read, so you can find it, and you can decide that for yourself. Thank you. If I were you, I would go to this website before the test. Happy face.